All right, y'all, I'm about to show you all something that no one has ever done on YouTube, and I may be breaking the rules here, but I am literally going to give you all the game, okay? I'm going to be showing you firsthand how a family trust is supposed to look, how we actually do our family trust, and how this can actually benefit you. And I'm going to show you the actual agreement on this particular video. So I hope you are locked in and you're taking notes, because I'm about to give y'all everything. All right, so let's go ahead and break it down. Okay, so this is the private family trust in a nutshell. This is a template that we actually supply to all of our mentees. This actually allows to actually be as protected as possible. And we have everything here at your disposal. Okay, so everything in yellow are things that you need to put down and you need to actually type for yourself. Okay. Now I'm going to break down some general principles here, some general understandings of the trust before I actually dive deep into it. There are four main components that you actually need to actually complete a trust, or four parties, right? You have the grantor, which is the person that is the person that's creating the actual trust. And of course, for an irrevocable trust, because this is an irrevocable trust, as you can see from right here, this is an irrevocable express trust. Express means written, okay? Oral means verbal. This is a written trust. Express means written in trust law, okay? So you need a grantor, which is the person that's creating the trust. Then you have the trustee. The trustee is the person that is considered a third party, right, in the actual trust, because the grantor cannot touch anything, cannot control anything, and cannot move anything, right? And so the trustee is the person that's going to be managing, distributing all of the assets and communicating with the beneficiary at the same time. Then you have the trust protector, okay? So mind you, remember, and there's other words for grantor. There's grantor, settlor, trustor, executor. If you see these words interchanged throughout here, I'm just interchanging them, right? In this case, we call it the settlor, which the reason why we say that is just because this is most banks know what grantor settlor is, right? They know what some of these terminologies are. So this actual agreement is best made for the banks. The banks will fully 100% understand what this agreement is. The downside when it comes to creating a trust is that you're speaking in trust law, which you should be, but you should also be speaking in banks law as well, or bank's language, so that you can actually get funding through these particular trusts. Now, of course, there are other trusts like business trusts and ministry trusts, especially business trusts, that are a bit friendlier when it comes to getting funding, business funding, but or corporate funding. But in this case, I'm just giving you all the basics. So trustee is the person that manages and distributes the assets. Trust protector, okay, is the person that keeps the trustee in line. Okay, what tends to happen, and you've seen these movies, is that the trustee takes all the money and then dips because they didn't have a trust protector in place. Okay, so a trust protector, is their job is to actually make sure that everything's in place. Okay, and make sure the trustee's in line. Then, of course, you have the beneficiary. Okay, which we'll talk about later. Which the beneficiary is the person that actually receives the actual assets. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into it. I know y'all are eager to know how this moves, so I've been wanting to do this for a while. So let's talk about it. Okay. So this is the family trust. All right. So this pretty much, anytime you're having a trust, you have a declaration when you're first doing this. So you always want to, declare the intentions of the trust. So this is what this is. You always want to make sure you're putting the date, the month, and the year, as well as the time in which it was created. Okay. You want to put the address, which the address you can get online, virtual address. You can Google those. There's plenty of those that come at that time. Of course, you put the address here again, put the trust here again. But from here, now we are talking about what classifies this trust, right? So this declaration establishes as an irrevocable express trust, separate from the partnerships or joint associations. Okay. So remind you, a trust is an entity just like any other entity. Okay, it's just an advanced version. It just has massive amounts of protection. Okay, when it comes to revocable, the grantor can make changes, but also the creditors can come in and take any of the money that is owed to them. Right, and that's really like the downside when it comes to a revocable trust. Now, mind you, I'm saying that in a very loosely way. There's a better way of saying what creditors can do when it comes to revocable trust. And I may be phrasing it a bit weird on this call, but in a gist, with creditors. Creditors can come in and do certain things that an irrevocable trust, the creditors cannot do with an irrevocable trust. Okay, so that's pretty much what an irrevocable express trust is. Like I said, express means written, oral. If this was an irrevocable oral trust, then that means that it's verbal. Okay, everything's in writing. Everything is based off contract law. Okay, so irrevocability. This trust is irrevocable. This trust is established as irrevocable by the settlor or grantor. Mind you, like I said, I'm interchanging. Amendments to the trust may be executed as outlined in the trust bylaws. So this is saying that the trust bylaws are going to pretty much explain in more detail when it comes to the actual trust. Okay, and when it comes to the amendments. So any amendments may be outlined in the bylaws. Okay. Now, Article 2, this deals with gifts, transfers, and property contributions to the trust. So you can make gifts, contributions, and all these things to the actual trust. And so this is pretty much what this is saying here. Trust is a trust corpus. Okay. This is a totally different call for, totally different time on what a trust corpus is. And if you all actually want to know what a trust corpus is, let me know in the description below or in the comments below. But pretty much it is the embodiment of the trust in the common language speaking, right? So pretty much you can make gifts, you can transfer things into the family trust, and you can also have property contributions to this actual trust, okay? So you can transfer property, which the transfer property described in Schedule A, which we'll get to, which are various forms bestowed upon gifts, donations, income, public and private benefits, and any other intangible or tangible assets of value, meaning that those things can be a transfer of property into the trust. You can make gifts, which it explains in more detail what gifts are. Trust acceptance, right? This is just pretty much explaining just a little bit more detail of what the trust is actually saying. By execution of the trust indenture, trustees accepts duties and obligations that can come with being appointed and acknowledges that settlor has settled upon the assets described in the Schedule A. So the name of the trust you'd put here, right? So it's saying the trust constituted by this trust indenture shall be known as the name. It'll be identified as such, and the trustee person will be this person as of this date. Okay, that's pretty much what it's saying in a gist. Now we're talking about the purpose of the trust. Okay, this is where we start understanding the benefit of having a beneficiary, right? So, like I said, these are things that I can go more in detail on if that's something that you want, but usually I go more in detail within our actual program with our mentees. So I won't go too much into this video because this is just like a high level overview. But this is just explaining the purpose of the actual trust and what it's supposed to do. Okay, you have the beneficiary benefit, how does it benefit the beneficiary, right? They have access to beneficial care, financial growth, legal safeguards. It supports education, skill development, encourages exploration and personal growth, provides a foundation for financial well-being, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's pretty much what this is, and everything else kind of just explains the administration side of the purpose. All right, now this Article 4 talks about the trustees' involvement with the family trust. What are they supposed to be doing? Okay, how many trustees are you trying to have, right? And then it talks about how do they manage the property? How do they appoint other trust officers? So you want to have a trustee successor, right? So you want to have a co-trustee and a trustee successor. Okay, so you want to have someone, if anything happens to the trustee, you have someone that actually is you want to appoint that actually is a person that can come into place whenever that trustee, or if that trustee goes through something, right? Can incapacitate it, whatever. Everything here just talks about what the trustee has power to when it comes to property, when it comes to investing, when it comes to managing, when it comes to borrowing, when it comes to insuring, when it comes to compromise claims, how they're compensated, right? Talks about everything with this particular trust. Okay. Like I said, successor trustees, I said trustee successor, but it's successor trustees, right? Talks about how, that. It talks about everything when it comes to here. And this is the part where you actually add what your really like your criteria for a beneficiary in order to actually get the assets. So do they need to attend a certain amount of, education? Do they need to have a certain amount of experience? Do they need to have X, Y, and Z? Like, do they need to be able to be in the business, the family business for a certain amount of time? How much mentorship should they have? That's pretty much what this section is talking about here. And that's all customizable for you guys. It talks about capital gains. It talks about, fiduciary monitoring. It talks about a lot of different stuff. And then, of course, you have the beneficiaries, right? What are the duties for the beneficiaries, right? How are things supposed to be distributed when it comes to expenses and living and investing, right? And then you put the name of the beneficiary in this section. If you have more than one, you input that, right? And you have the beneficiary units and all these other things. Then you talk about the jurisdiction. Where is this jurisdiction really into, right? Even though it's created in Georgia, this is a common law trust, okay? That's what this type of trust is a common law trust, which means that it oversees and it doesn't matter what the statutory limits are within a state. It is common law, which means it trumps that, right? Then it talks about privacy, which is super important because with the trust, you want to make sure that you have privacy. So everything here talks about how private the actual trust is, okay? Make sure I don't mess none up. Then we have the powers in general. So pretty much the liability of things, how the powers are done. How do you run your meetings? How do you deal with disputes? How long does this trust durate for? We have it where the conclusion is at 25 years, but you can renew every 25 years. Okay. So it says at the conclusion of 25-year period specified in the trust instrument, the trust shall automatically renew for a duration of 90 days unless otherwise. Right. So that's pretty much what it says. Severability, right? It talks about how things are not affected, how things are enforced. Then you have interpretations and definitions. What's great, what most people don't have with their trust that we have is you want to actually know what the hell you're reading. You get what I'm saying? So what we ended up doing is we ended up having a definition section here so you can actually understand and know every term that you aren't aware of. Right? What it means, what it doesn't mean, how this benefits you. So this is like a glossary in a sense for you understanding the actual trust. OK, so that's pretty much what that is. Then, of course, you have the notary. Right. This is where you actually start notarizing the document. These are super important because this is we highly suggest you go to the bank to get things notarized because they're free. 1 and 2. Most places recognize banks. They don't recognize online notaries. OK, so we highly suggest you actually go to the bank and get things notarized. This is where you're actually putting your beneficiary's name, your family trust name. How much goes to each person is what this is saying. So this beneficiary gets 50%. This other beneficiary gets 50%. You can also hold beneficial or trust certificate units, which is just like shares within a company to make it for you to understand. But pretty much you can hold certificate units where if they do certain things, they get X amount of TCUs. Right. If you want to do it that way, this is where you input all your assets. This is where you give the contact information for the beneficiaries, the memorandum for the property, what properties are going to be inside the trust. So a lot of people are like, well, how can I input properties? This is where you're associating the properties and then associating it with the beneficiary. So let me be more specific. This is where you add your overall properties. OK, you're just throwing up all your properties on here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to now associate these properties with a certain beneficiary. So when you see on these movies, hey, this person gets what? This person gets this. This person gets that. This is where that process comes into play. Okay. Then this is the trust certificate. Okay. This is super important. This is like your trust summary in a sense, right? So this is the summary of everything in regards to your trust. Then you have the trustees and the successors, right? So input all the trustees. You have something called an initial trustee or founding trustee. This person pretty much has power over everyone. And of course, the successor of that trustee would then become the founding trustee as well. And then you have the trust protector, which we just explained, right? Then you have the index. Okay, so this is just you having a high level overview, take pretty much a table of contents for the trustees and such, right? So look, y'all, this is super in detail. We don't play when it comes to our trusts. OK, we want to make sure that you know everything when it comes to a trust. Right. And no one is doing this. I'm telling you, no one is doing this. And I want to make sure y'all get the game. All right. No one is doing this. So I really hope, y'all, that this is giving you a bit of an understanding on how trust is structured, how trusts come into place. And I hope that this is something that you all want to actually implement. If you all are interested in getting a particular trust, getting things set up and protecting your family, building generational wealth and building that family business that you've all been desiring and always dreamed of having, then go to the link in the description, watch our free training. This free training will literally break down everything on how we actually set up our personal trust, how we actually set up our family business, and this will actually help you so that you can become the greatest version of yourselves and the greatest version of your family. And they will actually look at you, and you can have a painting on the wall and they say, this person did this for me. This person set things up for my family, and we want that to be for you. So if you think this is something that you'd be interested in, click the link in the description. I'm telling you, no one's giving this game out for free, but I'm gonna give y'all the game and show y'all this for free. I don't care. If y'all want the business trust and the ministry trust after this, let me know in the description and I'll break that down. Peace out, y'all.